Hello, my children, and welcome to the Church of Pentan Podcast, the premier Battle Spirit Saga talk show available on all your favorite podcast platforms. May the cores be our saviors. I'm Espira, your head of service, and joined with me are my apostles, John and Cosmic. John, how are we doing this week?
Great. It's almost Christmas. As of this recording, we've got 4 more days till Christmas. So I've been shopping nonstop. I got kid stuff in the background here, ready to wrap. And Santa's coming real soon.
Mm-hmm.
Doing great.
I'm terrible when it comes to Christmas. I'm like, oh yeah, that's in 4 days.
Yep.
Like turns out when you just don't live near family and you yourself don't have kids or anything, it literally just more days. But
I was the same way until about 8 years ago. I did all of my Christmas shopping like the day before.
Yeah.
And then now that I have kids, it's like you have to start like a month out. So
yeah. Especially if it's like the year of a release of like a new hot toy, you got to be out there gunning for it before they run out of stock. And Cause, coming back from casting the Pro Tour, how are you feeling, buddy?
Feeling pretty good. A lot of travel, going from Atlanta to Pro Tour, and then tomorrow I'm hopping on a flight down to Florida for Christmas, as you mentioned. But kind of the same thing. It's like doesn't really feel like Christmas just yet because it's just my partner and I here, and then we're gonna go see your family down there. And I realize it's I haven't been home long enough to get stuck with the cold and deal with all that yet because I've been traveling so much. It's like normally I try to save that and then go to Florida and get a nice little recovery, but I guess we'll just be enjoying the warm weather while we're there. All the same.
Yeah, 100%. At least it's not sad weather, so you get to get away from that a little bit.
Exactly.
I'd like to say that Portland was a getaway from that, but not really. I think the Pacific Northwest is very much sad central when it comes to that kind of thing.
Like back to snow definitely. And stuff. So, I mean, Portland was still nice. It was an upgrade from what I had to deal with back here.
Well, I'm jealous of your warm Florida weather. That's for sure. I used to live down there for a few years, and that weather was just like perfection.
Yeah, gonna be like a nice 70 while we're there. It's gonna be great. A little bit of rain, but we'll deal with it. Better than snow.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I had alluded to, the Pro Tour was this very weekend. I attended, cause went off to cast. So we'll be touching base on a little bit of that, kind of the comeback of Yellow, as it was, according to DD, set up, sandbagged in Atlanta to kind of push for a good finish going to the Pro Tour. And then, as we close out the year, we'll also be looking into kind of talk about a year in review, doing a little look back on this first year Battle Spirit Saga, kind of how things went, give a little bit of a retrospective and maybe talk about kind of our hopes and dreams, kind of what we would like to see going into the new year, especially since the kickoff to that will be Worlds, and then following Worlds, kind of everything subsequent to that, the collab sets and everything. So a little bit more. Then, of course, we've got What's That Card Art, where I present a card art to our fine gentlemen here and see if they can figure out the card name. So to kick it off, Cosmic was one of our fantastic casters over with the Magic Arcanum guys for the Pro Tour. And John, you think they did okay? Because you got that experience under your belt now that you got a Grand Open. So now that you're
now I'm an expert. No, I thought it was great. Yeah, Cause, no disrespect to the other guys. I mean, they did well, but Cause was definitely carrying the cast on his back there. Definitely with the knowledge of the game. The casting was great. I really enjoyed it. All the banter was good. Filled the dead air pretty well. I can tell that they didn't know all the cards, but they did the best they could, and it was good. It was a good cast, and I enjoyed watching it. And yeah, I mean, I look forward to maybe Cause casting one down the road. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that's the big the amount of times I got asked that at Pro Tour. It's like at the time of this recording, I literally do not know if I am casting or playing yet. So stay tuned. I guess we'll find out more together. I'm sure I'll make an announcement if I hear one way or another. But either way, I figured I'm just gonna unplug for the holidays. We have this and a couple other videos I'll push out, and then just start up fresh in January. We might just be starting the gauntlet in January to start testing for Worlds.
Honestly,
yeah.
So then before we kind of jump into kind of the meta and what happened with the event, How was it? How's the casting experience? Did you enjoy it? How was it in contrast to like Pro Tour 1? Just in general, how were the Magic Arcanum guys, right? Because like they have, what's fun about the Magic Arcanum guys is that they've actually interacted with the game on a level that's deeper than just the launch events. They went to Ohio, they keep up with the lore of the game. So there is that level that even though they lean more towards like a celebrated talent hire, they are very much still in the realm of knowledge with Battle Spirits, which is a lot of fun. So I mean, in general, how did you find casting a second Pro Tour?
I loved it. I will say, because going back to Pro Tour 1, I was a Charmer, and Charmer and I have been friends for years. So just like naturally better chemistry, and was, the first thing that I've cast in a while. So like a lot of nerves for that one. Where Ryan and Keith, the Magic Arcanum guys, also shout out to Ryan. He was like barely holding on. He got sick with something, and like he was just jamming through it, doing the best he can. Like while he was off camera, just like popping cough drops and stuff, like trying to hold it together. So God bless them. That was a challenge to get through it for sure. But no, they were great. Like I really enjoyed the vibe that both of them gave. Both of them, at least approached it, as you mentioned, like we're more familiar with the cards, like say compared to Charmer, but we're still like just very excited to get to cast at that level. So overall, I think it was a lot of fun. The one thing I will say was it was nice to have the break, but because we had the 3 casters, for those that don't know, so we had 2 at a time. We just rotate every so often. But then I also I didn't get to cast the Derm Dyna double heart play, which like broke my heart. I was like sitting there watching it happen off like to the side of the table, and I couldn't say anything, like and and they eventually caught it, but like they didn't see it happening like in real time as fast as like someone who's more experienced with the game would have picked up on. But that was the only thing like I really wish I was in for that game. But no, it was great. It would definitely could see them doing more events in the future. Like I said, they're still both keeping up with it. Ryan's a huge fan of the lore as well. Lore is just like his thing, right? And Keith is just a fun dude. We think about Magic Arcanum, and Ryan really is like the guy in front of the camera, and then his brother Keith is kind of just helps out, or they go to venues together and all that good stuff. But he was great as well. So it was nice to cast again, feel a lot more comfortable with it. And again, who knows what next year holds, but maybe cast more events in the future.
Yeah, that was the big thing that I took away from the stream, is that it was fun. They made it fun. You could tell they had a good time while casting. So even though they didn't quite know like the meta or the play lines or whatever, like they still made it fun, and they were still not, they still knew enough to make sense of gameplay and make it flow. So I thought that they did, pretty well in that respect. But yeah, I mean, it was a fun stream.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing. Because I've actually been talking to quite a few people lately about, people are either interested or getting into casting, or the conversation about casting tournaments has come up because Bandai Fest is coming through. People are, wondering what's happening for Worlds. And then kind of like some people decided that maybe going into next year, they're lining up more to wanting to be more on the content side of things and so on and so forth. And I think like one of the biggest things I try to focus on people is like, the biggest thing is you just got to make it fun, right? Like, yes, knowing about the cards and the play lines and giving that level of analysis is obviously important, and the more knowledgeable you are in the game, the better. But at the end of the day, if your presentation of that is very monotone, then we're going back to like the 1900s way of casting chess. And like, if you guys pay attention to the chess, that's not how people cast chess anymore. So like, yeah. I think being a facet for the viewer's emotions and to lend that to being a fun experience is the number one important thing. So, I think having a casting team that can kind of blend all that together is great. So, if the viewer experience was fun from a viewer perspective, then like all of that's all a win for me, because anything that makes the game more appealing to like at least want to give it a go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, in terms of the viewer experience, that was that. But in terms of the performance, Yellow made its comeback. And I think that's kind of the big story here. And not only through Yellow, but via TD kind of just plowing through with it. So if we look at this top 16 breakdown, which the tournament only had 105 players, I want to say. Something like that. So we did
118 was the
118.
final.
Okay. Yeah. So not exactly top 16 in terms of day 2, but still always important to kind of see what that representation looks like, nevertheless, because there is quite a significant prize drop off once you go past top 16. So through this pie chart, we've got a purple deck, a white aggro deck, 2-way control, 2 Gales, 2 Novas, 2 red mid ranges, and then the rest of it is looking to be yellow. So, yellow obviously making a huge comeback there, especially a big shout out over to TD. Your team did pretty well, John. Locking in at this point, we count Daniel and Zach as TD, right? Like y'all, like
yeah. I mean, they test with us and nonstop now, and
yeah.
I'm not surprised by their success or by the deck. I mean, I can say that this yellow deck they've been working on for over a month. They were going to play it in Atlanta and then kind of, decided as a group that it'd probably be best for the Pro Tour.
Right.
They had to get it to a place where they can beat red at least half the time. So they added the flagellum package. And then, it just kind of beats everything else. You can watch their deck profile. I think Emmy did a deck profile with them.
Like a 30-minute long one. Yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot of fluff in it, but there is a lot of good content there. So if you really want to see what cards do what and why they're in here, you can watch that. But this is something that's been in the making for quite a while. So, I'm not surprised they did well. And, congrats to Alex. He did deserve it. That pains me to say, but he earned this one. So
yeah, I think so. Naturally, I think the idea red is still an incredibly good deck. Played it in Atlanta. The beauty also is kind of it kind of doubles in on like if people think red do well, they bring in the white, and then obviously yellow can kind of really dumpster on white if they're not ready for it, especially between the Genbu and obviously the Michaela kind of in the back end in case you face anything that might be trying to capitalize off of thinking you can only win via Genbu. So I think the deck does extremely well. And of course, Ryan Matas over here in top 16, can't forget him. He actually finished 9th again, I want to say, like just
10th,
or 10th.
10th.
Yeah, so just barely.
9th was the white aggro.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I do also want to point out like the number of decks or the number of like Genbu decks. And I think Kaz made this point too in the Discord is that like the TD team as a whole, we have 5, 6, 7 players at like every event. It really skews the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many of them. So like if they all decided to play red, like the top 8 could have had 3, like all red decks, maybe like, who knows it a lot of times. And I don't want to like toot their horn or inflate their ego more than I already do. And that, they do themselves, but they can almost play any deck they want and still make top 8, like because they're very good players. But in this case, it's yellow. So I think that's why the yellow numbers are kind of inflated. I think that's a little misleading to
the meta as a whole.
The overall meta, yeah. But it's just how it panned out for this event.
It was something like 25% or 30% of yellow players were TD. So it's just like, okay, well, if we remove this one section of it, what does that actually look like? So,
yeah.
But we see this time and time again with all the events, right? It's like you just expect that TD, or I guess TD plus now with the new members, right, is going to end up somewhere in the top cuts. And maybe not making like top 8, but then they're like, oh, they're somewhere in top 16. And it's still having that same conversation where it's like, you expect good players to continue to do well, and they probably made a good meta call. And it's like, okay, so what deck did they all bring? And you know that, at least I think for this one, everyone was on the same exact 16. I think that's mostly what the team does anyways. I think there's been like very small changes otherwise, but like they're all going to bring the same exact deck as well, which is going to put up, good numbers just again, based on their individual skills as players. So not too terribly surprised to see this much, Genbu when you look at the names behind it, notably.
Yeah. So looking at this top 8 of goes, I just want to give a shout out to Emiliano, our caster from Atlanta, actually breaking into the top 8 here. So congrats to that. Andrew Duvall and George Machado, both on Sigmund Nova. And I guess that kind of leads into my next question, because I never watched it. I didn't get around to watching the stream. Day 2, I was zonked out until 1 p.m. And then that's when I decided to move my butt down over to the floor. So I guess my question to, you guys, John, as the viewer, and then causes the caster has been there. How did these guys make it through like these red decks? Like, what happened?
Well, a lot of it is that they probably played a lot of yellow. Like Alex said that George played like 5 yellows in a row, and I'm sure that Andrew probably had a similar lineup.
And is it just that the TD list is like really tuned to be able to beat red? Like, I don't
know. Like George's and Andrew's deck, like pounds this yellow deck that Alex and Daniel played. Like they just got extremely lucky in the top cut. Like Alex said, he just drew godly and like the best match he's ever drawn in his whole life to beat George. And then of course you saw Zach's match on stream. He's probably would have lost if it was untimed. But they made a great meta call. Like, I think this is the first event that Andrew's done well in. I mean, he's played in 3 or 4, and I think he just gets pounded every time. He's a very, very good player at every game he ever plays. It's just he hasn't had any success in Battle Spirits. And, to see them break through like this, George and Andrew both, like, it just means they made a really good meta call and played, the deck well. And that's what happened. Like, the Hippo was a great call in this deck, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and shout out to Andrew in particular, or I guess George, you probably know it just as well as I do. But it's like Andrew is double DBS Nats, won once, double DBS Worlds. Recently played a One Piece Treasure Cup and won that in Miami, which was like 5-12 or something. So like the guy's just very good at card games, it turns out, right? So it's like he does very well most of the time. And for the top 8 match, he just bricked horribly. Like, if that's just variance at the end of the day, like, all 6 Nexus removal were bottom 15 cards. And like at any point, if that Blessed Cathedral would have been removed, Zach loses on the spot. Like, no contest, not even close. But, someone else do the math of how ungodly unlucky Andrew got, but that's just a break sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, hey, at the end of the day, I don't think it takes away from anyone doing what they did. That's just card games, of course. And, it could have, the coin could have tossed on either way there. And then I guess the trend just kind of continues that, like, top 8, like, you got the one Gale deck. Like, you got the one guy who was able. I will say Emiliano, unfortunately, did get a deck check error going into top 8, which gave him a game 1 loss, which unfortunately, from the sounds of it, from the judges and from himself, like, had they actually played out like a proper full 3 games without the first loss, like, Emiliano probably would have gotten there. Because he did actually force out a game 3 anyways. But nice to see that, Nova Gale made a comeback. As kind of one of the discoverers of the deck, I'm glad to see that I was able to do stuff, and it can. I think I like the consistency that the red brings into it, and just being able to give you draw power. And it's like, we're just gonna do red mid-rangey things. I think this is kind of like a pretty well optimized version of it, where it's just like, I think we were testing out a lot of weirder stuff going into Pasadena, and I think if we had just refined on like, hey, just play the red good cards, and then you kind of go from there, I think it lines up.
Well, the meta's been shifting. I mean, I think Nova is a really good call for this event. Like, you see here with his list, you see with George and Andrew's list, like, it's just Nova was just the right play. We as a team played Nova in the second Pro Tour and didn't do as well because it probably wasn't the right call. But I think in this event it was, and it, showed, and they did very well.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, congrats to everyone who did that. They did also announce that they're doing pass down invites for Pro Tours. So if you attended Pro Tour 2, if you attended Pro Tour 3, one, I would recommend just kind of like go to the Play TCG Discord, because they got like the full message there as to what placements actually did get awarded pass downs. But
I think it was 86th for the Pro Tour 2 and 102nd for Pro Tour 3. I think it was.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
You should be able to go on Bandai TCG Plus on like Friday and be able to sign up for Worlds if this is you and you are looking to attend Worlds, which I recommend you do, because top 64 is $1,000. Every time I say that blows my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Then I guess just to give a couple flowers, Anthony, congratulations on making another top 16 with Mandango. There you go. We called you out. White Control not breaking into top 8, but did break a couple of spots into top 16.
That's really surprising to me. I thought that White would have done better, especially with like George and Andrew and those guys playing Nova. Like, White should have like just scraped them, but I guess they just got good matchups and won the Swiss roulette. But whereas White just kind of got beat up by Yellow, I guess. But I really did think that they'd be more White Control. So that's surprising to me.
Well, it was the second most played deck of the event, so like it was up there. They didn't have good conversions for it.
Yeah. I also did hear there were quite a few mirrors, so it could just be White players took themselves out, right? Like that could also very much be reality, but also with so much Yellow present, and I'd argue even if you kind of line up your deck to being like trying to make the matchup more 50-50 against Yellow, it's still kind of like an upwards hill battle regardless. So
yeah.
All right. Well, that was kind of the Pro Tour, and then we naturally did into Worlds. Still not too sure what's going on with that. No new announcements. I presume we're going to get some stuff as we kind of close out December and start up into January. When?
Yeah.
Who knows? At this
Maybe,
point,
yeah.
I don't know, dude.
It's happening. That's all we know. Is Worlds is
Yeah.
happening. People have been invited, and we will show up and play.
I would like to be able to book a flight if I got to book a flight.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm looking forward to Worlds. But like you guys said, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going on. I actually can't even register for the event yet. Like on day one that it opened up in Bandai TCG Plus, I submitted my application, did all the stuff. I got like my thing on the app says like applied, and it's just been stuck on applied for like 6 weeks now.
Yeah, because I got confirmed right after applied, like literally 24 hours after.
Yeah, mine's just been sitting on applied forever, and like I contacted Bandai, they sent back like some weird half English response that made no sense. So then I contacted D, and she said she's looking into it for me. So
mine also says applied. Oops.
Yeah, so I have no idea what's going on. I'm going to assume if I show up, they'll be like,
yeah, right. Like I think you should be fine.
Like, bro, I've qualified twice over. Like, let me just play. So
right.
Whatever. I'm not worried about it, but it's just kind of weird that like I'm already getting errors on this app, and they're supposedly using it to run the event, and it's like.
So I did hear they're using the app to do registration, but the tournament won't be run on it, is what I've heard. So at least there's that, because there ain't no way in hell I trust Bandai TCG Plus to actually execute a tournament.
I don't trust it for locals. So like, I can't imagine an event that 150 players rather than 10. So, which I mean, I think. Speaking of the number of players for Worlds, like I think it'll be now with all these pass downs closer to like maybe 150 players. Like
probably, I'd say about maybe I feel confident that there's gonna be a top 16. Like that's I don't know what the number is after that, but I feel confident that we're gonna have a top 16.
Yeah,
my threshold as well.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Actually, so something fun to kind of roll back to the Pro Tour. We got giant cards, which was actually
that was great.
That was super cool. I get funny enough, actually, Dee was talking to me at mid-event. She's like, Tata just goes in for every single entry on that giant card trying to get in.
I mean, I was watching the stream, but
I don't blame him.
I didn't win. I think it was Jex that won, which
it was Jex, yeah.
That's great. I'm glad he got it. But yeah, I mean, I was like, I'm watching stream, might as well try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Kaz actually got to see them in person. What do you think of the giant cards?
They were good. Giant. Again, I just had the giant Cthulhu shark behind me, so I really didn't get to see the other ones in much detail. But
yeah,
I'm sorry. I was just thinking, like, you got one. Where's yours in the background? Jack's got one. Where's mine, man? Where's my giant card?
Dude, the worst part is like I tried. So for those not in the know, the giant cards are effectively like these massive, like. Whatever meter long cards that are kind of giant. Other card games have done them before. And this is the first time that Bandai has ever done them for an event. There were 4, one of which was given away to the stream, one of which was given away the second place of the tournament of the Pro Tour, then one for as a side event raffle pricing. And then the last one is kind of like a bingo sheet. Hey, do all these activities at the Pro Tour and you can get in for this giant card. So, I actually ended up, I tried really hard to not be a part of it at all. Cause I was like, hey, 2 things. One, it's like, I'm a content creator. Like there's obviously like levels of bias there. I'd rather just not put that like any thought in someone's mind that whatever was rigged. Obviously I'm friends with a ton of the judges, with the tournament organizers.
And it was rigged anyways.
I didn't do any of the side events. I didn't get any raffle tickets, and now like I'm sitting there and I'm playing like a for fun game, just because I was asked to, and I was like, sure, whatever, let's play for fun. And then Rorin, who's actually if you're on the Discord, the one who's constantly telling us how many Tulsas away from an event we are size wise, he was leaving to catch his flight, and he had 2 tickets, one from participating, and then he won his draft, so he gave it to me, and I'm like, and I put these down. I'm like, I swear to God, these are gonna be the ones that win. So playing it out. All right, draw the raffle ticket. 2. Oh, yeah, mine started at 2. 1. Oh, okay, I guess it's 21. I guess that's me. And then just like I raise my hand, I'm like, me. And then all you hear in the background, boo.
So that was like your Goblet of Fire moment from Harry Potter when like all of a sudden this name's is drawn. It's like I wasn't even trying.
Yeah, I wasn't even supposed to be in, dude.
I was supposed to be here today.
Yeah. So did end up winning the large Maduke. So that's actually still in the car. I just haven't fully unpacked yet. So she will find her space somewhere behind me now. And I guess I have a big piece of BSS memorabilia to move forward.
So what's the like material? Is it cardboard or is it like?
So it's very card-like. Okay. And actually, so I had actually talked to Play to see like, hey, like what was the process like for y'all? And apparently, yeah, like the big deal for them was that it was as card-like as possible. So it's not like a poster. I'd say it kind of is, but it is closer to card-like. The front is very glossy. I know other companies have done giant cards and they're almost like poster boards, so they're very thick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I thought I had
foam board is what I was trying to remember the name of. Like they're not like that, which is why I thought it was really, really nice. I just couldn't remember the name because like that's what Flesh and Blood did. But these are like, again, actual looks and feels like a card. The detailing on it is very nice. So like they really did a wonderful job on these.
Yeah, I have a giant card for Versus System somewhere. I thought it was here. Maybe it's upstairs.
Yeah. But storage. A lot of those are usually
it's like cardboard, cardstock, like hard as shit, right? So, but like I would think, like I saw them printing these, and it looked like it was more flimsy, like like you said, it feels like a card. So you'd almost have to frame it, I guess.
Yeah. I will say there's a little bit of bend if you just hold it up by itself, like it.
Right.
Like I would recommend either framing it or like having some kind of backing support for sure. Which like obviously is a little bit more work into it, but also it just feels a little bit more premium in my opinion. So like that was kind of really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I'd look forward for them doing it again, honestly. I heard that they're gonna, test it out, talk to the devs and when they come down for Worlds, because obviously that gives everyone here opportunity to be able to talk to Japan a little bit more closely when they actually see things. So who knows? Maybe we get more of these in the future. Maybe they're foiled. Maybe they do other stuff with them. Who knows? But I would be extremely excited for them to keep using this. Because like I said, like, yeah, for BSS, there's a decent level of excitement there, especially when we're talking about like the Madukes and the Novas and whatever, because those are like mascots and whatever. But I'm like, bro, you want to sell like literally 1 million tickets to an event? Just do a giant card manga Luffy. And like, there you go. You literally sold out your event. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
So,
well, like it also gives players something to do, right? That like you give them a goal to achieve. So that means that they're going to stick around and they're going to try to achieve, the thing. So like at Worlds, if you just have like a cool little side carnival game or whatever, and like I would try to win a Luffy. I mean, that sounds cool, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I feel like they should try to do things like that. And so I'm glad they did it at the Pro Tour. Not being there, it was still fun to watch, like the, images and stuff on stream go by. It looks like people were having fun with it, and that's great.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to just like the general celebration of it, right? Like put up decorations that say like Battle Spirits or One Piece, or like, and giant cards are a very easy way to do that. Obviously, not the only thing that you should do, but it's a step in that right direction that hopefully makes it feel like we're not just going to events. It is actually a celebration of the IP. So
exactly.
Yeah, they should do this for all of their games, truthfully, but obviously a little bit biased here since we're talking about Battle Spirits, but it'd be really cool. And to be fair, probably really easy for them just to do it even like once a year, like let it be your nationals and your worlds sort of thing. If that's what you want to do, like if they can only do it once a year, that makes sense then, but would be nice to see at like a Pro Tour level even. So it's like a couple times a year that players can have that experience to look forward to, and then hopefully acts as like a little extra incentive to say, hey, I'm going to go to this Grand Open because I want to try to qualify for the Pro Tour, knowing that there's going to be like these cool side events and other things going on. So again, huge shout out to D and Play TCG with like the bingo. It was very well, for the people that I talked to, which was not everyone, but from what it seemed like, it was very well received and people had fun with the bingo. And I think that's the important part. It's not just show up to the Pro Tour and play. It's, hey, here's this other cool stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so things to look forward to, maybe kind of indications of exciting things they've got coming down for Worlds. we know that they have those really sick world promos that we saw, like 4 of them. So, maybe we get more announcements of those, more announcements of what everything else looks like. Just kind of pushing through to next year, because next year's going to be a very competitive year. We're constantly talking about it. We're millions of new card games and everything. So kind of whatever can kind of keep people's interest is going to be very interesting going into next year. And in that regard, we talked about the celebration of the game and stuff, and I do think that'll be a good kind of transition over to talk about our year in review. But before we do that, let's take a quick break to guess what that card art is. This time, gentlemen, I've touched in on the promo bin and took a promo card, which Lord knows how playable those tend to be. So,
Dual Eagle. That's like the only full name I
know. All right. So I can't remember who's going first this week. I think it's John's going first this week, if I remember correctly. Or did he go first last?
I went first last week, and I got
last week because he got the Cursed Dragon. Yeah. So
he got the free one. Go figure.
Well, free. Y'all almost didn't get it. Like, let's.
I knew it because I just played it. All right. What's this impossible card? Hook me up.
Yeah. So for our viewers, I show on screen a card art to our apostles, and they have to give me the full card name. We tend to give nicknames to cards to make it easier for us to be able to recall them, but Battle Spirits likes to give us nice long names to go with. So we'll see if our gentleman here can figure this out. So enjoy this promo, gentlemen. We have a metallic dragon here.
Yeah.
It's
not gonna get it. I know the fact.
It is red. It's 7 core, 3 reduction, ancient dragon. On levels 1, 2, and 3, during your attack step, if 2 or more of your opponent's spirits have been destroyed this turn, treat the spirit as level 3. When the spirit attacks on level 3, select one of your opponent's spirits with 4k for your BP or one of their nexus and destroy it. And it is PR20, which I think takes us to the 3rd TP.
Yes, this is the
because I
third
literally
TP. Yep.
To make this worse, I literally just opened these today.
I was going to say, I just opened one today.
And threw it in the garbage, basically, because it's just not seeing play ever. So I knew it's a fact. No idea what the name is. I'm not even
this like another dragon that has like Mogwao in the title?
This is not a Guo Asian dragon, no. Okay. But yeah, so there is one of those in the TP actually, but it is not this one,
Okay.
Yep, it's the Awakened 1 core guy.
Mm-hmm. So are you just...
absolutely nothing. No, I give up immediately. I'm not going to drag this out.
Yeah,
I literally don't even have it. Like, that's how bad it is. And I kid you not, for those that are like, I opened this 3 hours ago and just forgot. Does not matter.
Yeah. It's really cool. I mean, this is actually kind of cool because this is the first time I'm even looking at the art closely, and like I see like the metal like blades as talons, which is.
Got like
cool. Look at a sword for his horn, like, man, this guy's awesome.
Yeah, so I think the design's super cool. It's just a shame that the card kind of does nothing.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
No, all right. Well, for this card art, we've got Sword Dragon Emperor Excalibus.
Okay.
I was gonna give you Sword Dragon. Like, I have no idea what that.
Yeah, I could not, dude. I wouldn't. Yeah.
I mean, we should have guessed Sword Dragon because he's got the sword coming out of his dome. So, like, it should have been like
his wings are swords. So he's got like Wolverine type claws. Like he's got the whole. He's definitely very swordy.
Sordosaurus. This is what Sordosaurus should look like.
Does Sordosaurus even have a sword on him?
Probably not.
Probably not, huh? Which kind of makes it, because he's a pterosaur, right? It's almost like if Sordosaurus should have been, what is it, a Reptoid? Because those are literally Reptoid, like axe lizard and other stuff like that.
Hey, listen, a Reptoid made top 8 of an event, so we shouldn't hate too much at Armored Lizardon.
Lizardon, yeah, true. All right. So to kick it back, like we were saying, we are closing on the first year of Battle Spirits. It will crescendo with the World Championship having at the end of January. So kind of gives us an opportunity to be able to look back and see kind of how our first year went and just kind of give our first thoughts on that. And honestly, it's been a pretty tumultuous year, to say the least. There's been a lot of different ways in which Bandai has done things for Battle Spirits versus its other games that kind of distinguished it, alongside the fact that it is a relaunch in the West of a game that doesn't have a predetermined like anime IP like any of their other games. So it kicked off with the launch event, actually, which is, I think I can appreciate it in concept, but was probably not the right way to go about it. The launch event was an event where you could essentially get the same amount of pricing as a Pro Tour, so lots of money on the line. And you could go to the event. This was a month before the release of the game. And you could buy 8 boxes worth of product, which is like about 98% of a full master playset at that point, to be able to kind of play constructed this tournament. I think I like the excitement. Here's the thing. I think this event, without a doubt, definitely drove the excitement it wanted to. It was like, what, a 400 man event. And that's like across multiple different continents. There were players from lots of different card games that decided like, hey, big money tournament. We'll go ahead, give it a try. So I think to that end, it did well. But unfortunately, I think the long-term ramifications of an event where, you're asking players to buy like 3/4 of a case of product before a game even releases kind of had a trickle effect, which probably hurt the game more long-term than it actually helped.
Probably. So like the launch event, I don't want to get too much into it, but I do have some thoughts about it. Like, number one, I think that probably funny enough is that this is the one event that celebrated the players more than any event that they did the entire year, which is kind of ironic because the game wasn't even out yet. Like they had the cosplayers, they had like of course they had product everywhere. They were giving out demo decks. They were just like accepting anyone and anything, and it was great for that. Number two, I love that it was in Vegas. Like that, I wish every event was in Vegas because I had a great time, and I just feel like there's plenty to do, and like it's just fun. It was very cold, but it was fun. But like you were saying, where they really missed was that the timing of this event was just awful. I mean, it was like a month before actual release, and they were charging MSRP prices for like up to 8 boxes, I think you can buy. And like, it was just like, that was like not the way to do this event. I think if Palm Springs would have just been this event, they would have had a lot more success overall, because then people could have already had product. They didn't, wouldn't have to pay almost $1,000 to get the cards they needed for their decks. So that the timing was just off, but everything else about the event, I thought was great. Like the hype was built. The prizes were obviously very good. They just kind of punted a few aspects of it, and timing being the biggest one, I think.
Yeah, I think a post-release, especially because like a post-release event where like, imagine you have a lot of players like Majin Bay or whatever who like tried out the game just for the launch event. And then this launch event was actually your first grand open, and now they have an invite to Worlds or Pro Tour or whatever, and they'd be even more incentivized to just keep on playing the game after they already played this one big tournament. I think would have led a much better trickle into it, especially since also now stores are more on board because they're actually able to sell off the product to the competitive players who actually want to play the game.
Yeah.
So. But to that end, I think at the end of the day, did get the event numbers that it wanted. Every region got above 100 players, if not, in the 2-3, and for Vegas's case, 400, and definitely kicked things off with, the first set. Actually, I go back and constantly say that the first set of Battle Spirits is arguably probably like a masterclass in set design, in my opinion. I think, high power level, sure. And I think there's a couple of misses. Like I think Enterprise is kind of a design failure, in my opinion, in terms of like what you're trying to get people to, how you're trying to get people to play an interactive game. But Dawn of History, I think, had a lot of depth. I think it had an evolving meta for many, many months, especially once you threw in the TPs, which like Axebiter was kind of its own, thing. But I thoroughly enjoyed exploring Dawn of History personally.
I once shared that same thought. And then we got set 2. And like I totally changed my mind. Set 1 was great. I agree. It was very balanced for the most part, outside of a couple problem cards, but every single color was playable in some respect. Every color made a top 8. Like it was just a pretty solid set. The problem was it was probably too good. Like the power level was like probably a little higher than it should have been, which made set 2 like completely like non-existent.
Right.
And so prior to set 2, I thought that this was the perfect set. And then they released set 2, and it's like, well, it's like maybe they screwed themselves by making set 1 way too good and way too powerful, that now future set design is going to suffer for a long time.
Right.
And the set 2 and the set 2 meta was just awful. If you liked it, great, good for you. I thought it was like an unplayable game for several months.
No, it was rough for everybody.
Yeah, and then set 3 came out and fixed things for the most part, but I don't know if the damage was done or not, but like set 2 was just bad. But I agree. I mean, I kind of got off the point, but I thought set 1 was also very good.
Yeah, I think we going into the launch event very much was like Nova, purple, white, and then eventually TD kind of broke through with Terra, and that kind of really was what shaped everything. So then it was like Terra, purple, and then you could play white, and then if you can high roll, do well. And then Axebiter came through and completely changed everything. Once people kind of figured out what the Axebiter build would look like, initially people thinking that Axebiter wasn't necessarily a Fora because it was expensive, and then turns out if you just build your entire deck for Axebiter, it actually turns out it's pretty all right, especially once you start including a lot of cantrips. The zeros, Elemental Spark, the zeros actually were quite impactful in that front. And then eventually you just kind of throw in the purple package so that you could much more easily go into depths. And then, depths was absolutely insane. I still stand depths can never come back. That card's absolutely ridiculous, at least until maybe things get better or things get more powerful in the game. So I would say set 1 was pretty phenomenal up until we got to the first Pro Tour. And then it was like Axebiter land, and then things just were not great from there.
That's where it went off the rails, was after Elemental Spark. The game kind of went off the rails for a bit, and we were all, I know Kaz was a big, a believer that maybe set 2 would kind of right the ship, like right the meta, and it just didn't, right? Like it just Axebiter and Pterosaurs just dominated the entire set 2 meta from start to finish, and it's just how it was.
Yeah. So then I guess transitioning, like what happened with set? And I think it's just a power level thing, right? Like it's
power level thing, yeah. Like they made a new color with green. They added it to the game, and it was just a bit underwhelming, which wouldn't have been that bad if the other colors kind of made up for it. And it just, like nothing really popped out as like, man, this is a really exciting card. And, in fact, most of the X rares in set 2 didn't even get played until set 3, right? Now we see Dragon of King. Now we see some of the Purple Void Lord. Now we see, just all of the X rares that should have been played in set 2 are played now. And it's just, so it's almost like that set didn't exist.
Yeah, it really just comes down to like you build up this whole, even from like a lore perspective, right? It's like you build up this whole thing of like your entire set being revolving around these Void Lords that are just all god awful. Like I get you want to try to play safe with it and like, oh, play these big cool guys, but it's like, no, they just all suck, it turns out. And like, look, we'll get to set 3 eventually, I'm sure, but like set 3 is such a 180 from set 2. Like, yes, you're like, we can argue obviously the Pilgrims and the Nexus could have been a little bit better, but at least your key spirits, your X rares are like exciting. Like we see a lot more play out of those compared to set 2, where it's just a very blatant night and day difference between whoever designed set 2 and whoever designed set 3. Feels like it was 2 different people completely, or 2 different teams completely, I should say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And also set 2 is where they tested out collabs, right? We got our first, obviously we got like box topper collabs previously with like Pro ZD. And then going into set 3, we got the Game Grump stuff. But set 2 was our first like actual in-box collab. And that was with Gundam. And they actually, unfortunately, here's the thing. I can understand the logic of going with the Void Lords because like they're the big boss monsters of the set. But there's like 2 issues in that. Unfortunately, they don't really play well together. They all reference each other in some sense. Void Ogre can get any other one. And then Acadia can like go and make your other Void Lords unblockable and stuff. And they kind of all play together a little bit. But unfortunately, there was nothing that brought that synergy together. And then unfortunately, also standalone, they kind of didn't do anything. And I think that was kind of a whiff in the sense that, unfortunately, for people who like heard, oh, Battle Spirit's Gundam, let me play Gundam, right? And unfortunately, I think they didn't have, there's no Gundam deck. And unfortunately, you couldn't even craft one because it was just based around all these boss monsters.
They had the right idea. they just kind of did it very poorly, right? Like, first of all, the distribution of this set was garbage, like F tier garbage. Like, there were dead boxes and cases. Like, they should have put at least one Gundam in every single box that's not beam rifle. It's just they had all the chances in the world to do this right, and then they just didn't. And my locals took a huge hit with this set. Like, we had like 15, 16 people every week, and then by the time we're halfway through set 2, we were lucky to get 4, just because like they quit because they were getting dead boxes. And now with set 3, like most of them are coming back, and we're back up to like the 10, 12 people mark. It was just like the dark ages. And I think, as you mentioned, it was like these Void Lords were just a giant miss. But they were smart with Gundam. That was a great idea. Just poor execution.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I think they learned a lot from this, because set 4 sounds like exactly what it would have been. Like, here's the thing. I'm partial to full collabs. Just literally give us Gundams, right? Like, just give us freedom, and like he prevents my opponent from being able to activate his bursts or whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, give us the JP stuff. But I will say, if you are going to go the alt art route, I think set 4 is exactly how you do it, right? And that sounds like what, like, big ups to Bandai for doing everything they did to kind of fix set 4, which is 1, delay the set, pull it back and make the changes that they did. 2, work with the stores to make it more enticing for them to be able to do so. Because like set 4, it's not only are they doing alt arts again, but they're doing alt arts across rarities, right? So from the sounds of it, they're doing it for rares, uncommon. So it sounds like they're going to look at a couple of archetypes and be like, you are the Ava archetype, right? It's just alt arts, but nevertheless, it sounds like not only are you going to get multiple hit, at least 1 hit per box of an alt art, but like if someone goes into Battle Spirits, and even though it's not a full collab set, are telling themselves, I want to play an Evangelion deck, they can. And I think that's super important. Like, I think a lot of people would have stuck out with False Gods if they could have just played their Gundam deck. Right, like you make Voidlords not total ass, and then you give them like a Nexus that says like, hey, this is like Nomengard City but for Voidlords, and it's like a rainbow Nexus or whatever. I actually think people would just play a Gundam deck and just have fun with it. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah, looking forward to Eva stuff. It's exactly that, where each color is going to get 4 different cards, and it will be common, uncommon, rare, and X rare. So like, if we look to set 3, how we got the Nexus, the Pilgrim, the Key Spirit, 100%. I have no doubt in my mind it's going to be the same exact thing. So hopefully they're the double symbol spirits, because I assume that those will be the most playable, and that's just like a slam dunk for what gets the Eva art as well. But we'll have to see, because then begs the question of like, we're getting 18 SPRs, if I remember correctly, like, basically double the amount of SPRs. So like, what cards are they picking? Like, are we going to see another Clavis where it's like Wing Gundam and SPR Clavis, which unfortunately we probably will.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too, is that even if you can't build an Eva deck, I mean, maybe you can, I don't know, but even if by some chance you can't, you're still going to have so many cards to choose from for the collab that surely, if you want to play some of your favorite, like Eva characters or whatever, you'll be able to, whereas Gundam, it's like you were just never able to. So that's the big thing. Like, I don't care that I can play a full Eva deck or not. I'm sure some do, but like most people don't. They just want to play some of their favorite things. And I think that you'll be able to in set 4.
Yeah.
The thing that's also worth giving a quick shout out to is like, that's very smart move by Bandai to set it up this way, because set 4 has your alt arts for Eva, and the very next set is the collab. Right. So knowing that players will like get into the collab, get their starter decks, and they'll go, oh wait, I need cards from these other sets, like just Burning Force, right? Let's just staple example, for example. Here's Burning Force from the equivalent of Burning Force in set 4. With the Eva artwork, so now you can still have that full Evangelion deck, but it's like, the Thorn Rifle or Beam Rifle Thorn Prison situation where you at least have that artwork, and you're still able to live within that player experience of like, okay, this is all my Evangelion deck, even if I'm having some of those alt arts from set 4. So hopefully that all works out well enough, but I think they'd be very, very smart to land some staples that way in set 4 to curve into the collab set.
Yeah.
Yep. So exciting things to look forward to there. And then on the cusp of getting into set 3, which I think has been a nice repivot for Battle Spirits, just shy of the Pro Tour, we did get our first ever banned and limited list. In hindsight, and just to kind of throw back for people, Volcanic Break limited to 1, Oviraptidon banned, Netherworld Depths banned, Axebiter banned. Did this do what it was meant to do, and was it a good thing for the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of short and sweet. I think, yeah. I think that at the time, all of these cards made sense. Can't really complain about it. Any of them really making any kind of impact. But I think with the release of set 4, they could go back and revisit this. I think that you need to unban or unlimit either Break or OV. Like, I think you pick one of those 2 cards, put it back into the meta, into the rotation, and go from there. I think that Depths, you touched on it earlier, can stay banned forever. There's too many cards now that like just cheat it. Like, can you imagine Depths with that mermaid card? Like,
no,
or Depths with Gale. Gale's only issue is that it doesn't see enough cards.
Yeah.
So like, okay, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to Fang you, and now let's just start drawing cards. Like,
so Depths can stay gone forever. I think Axebiter could stay gone for quite a while because we still don't have any real answer to it.
I constantly forget. Like, literally, I was talking to the guys at the Pro Tour. I'm like, actually, I could probably come back. We could just flood it. And they all looked at me with blank stares. Like, it still can't die. I'm like, oh yeah,
that
card is busted.
I don't think that Axebiter is like the most busted card ever in a vacuum. Like, it's obviously very good. The problem is that the game just has no answers for it, and you can't have cards like that exist. Axebiter Depths gone forever, fine. But I think one of the red cards can come back.
So I guess go ahead, Cos.
I was just saying, for me, it just comes down to like whatever's in set 4, right? Like we saw Colemane, which really didn't get there too much in set 3, but like if one of the double symbol spirits is going to be an aggro deck, then unban Volcanic Break. If it's going to be more of like a mid-range slower deck, then give us back OV to have like the lower end curve and make Nexus Hazard a real thing again. Like whatever they give us in set 4, like let that be the deciding factors just for more in color diversity. Because like what we talk about with purple, or I guess purple and white right now, we've seen an aggro deck do well, a mid-range deck do well, and a control deck do well in those 2 colors. Deep enough card pool makes sense. Rest in peace, yellow. You only get to do one thing ever. And red really just has been, other than this like most recent tournament, it's been red mid-range or bust. So I think there's definitely something to be said about allowing multiple archetypes within color, because people are going to be like, hey, I really want to play red. I like all the red decks, but they're missing an element to it. And again, maybe Colemane just fills that gap. And once more people have time to test with it and realize how OP Power Boost is, love that card for real. But I would like to see, at least the Pterosaur package come back and let Nexus Hazard be its kind of shining light.
So I guess my question then only comes because like I kind of agree for the most part. Depths can stay banned. Fighter event, which like to note, when even a Yumu says that like even Japanese players look at the Axebiter and be like, this card would be kind of annoying. And they're like 20 years in the future. Like, yeah, that's a whole different conversation. So, but then when I look back at the red cards, I'm like, I agree. I can understand wanting to open up the colors, but like, does red need the help? I could see Volcanic Break just being nice to have because like we don't actually have good magic answers to boss monsters for the most part. It's almost not really existent for the. So I think having more flash answer that can deal with a big thing is kind of nice. But does red also really need the help, or is it just more so really about opening up the game?
Exactly. I don't think it's really about giving red help per se. I mean, we already know red's the best color. I mean, that's just how it is. They just have the most, like efficient cards. It's more about giving them choices, right? Like Kaz even mentioned it. Like right now, you can't play red unless it's like some mid-range thing, and that's fine if that's what they want. But I just think that purple you can build 5 different ways. Yellow, well, RIP. White you can build several different ways. Green, it's just red's like, okay, I'm a mid-range deck now, and like I would like to see OV come back and just see what Pterosaurs can do in this meta. I mean, maybe it's too good. I don't know. I haven't tested it, but that I think that red kind of needs that right now. Set 4 maybe they make a new 1-drop, red pterosaur, and Ovi can stay gone, fine. But I think that red kind of wants him back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I could totally see that. So made for a refreshing Pro Tour because, of course, the structure of the competitive season has been, oddly enough, release the set, play the entire competitive season, and then close off with the Pro Tour right before the release of a new set. So at the very least, a shakeup. And I think we're feeling that again with Worlds. We're all kind of like, if we hear nothing this week, we're not going to hear anything until Worlds. And I don't think we do actually hear anything. But a shakeup would be nice to change things between Pro Tour to World Championship. But nevertheless, kind of the lull that we're facing here, which oftentimes was actually helped by the expansion sets, which we would feel mid-set. Elemental Spark kind of did that a little bit. And then Ancient Heroes, while not super impactful across the board, did have some notables, right? I think the first go-to was definitely Tokiwa. Kind of infinite value, infinite Beldegor targets, works well with red, and then through into set 3 later, very key piece in the Gale stuff. Oddly enough, though, K, big winner, I'd like to argue also for this, kind of seeing, the creation of a whole new archetype, which is essentially Battle Spirit's Highlander. And then you just 5 color piles. So, I mean, Kaz, you've definitely piloted this deck to a certain level of success and kind of continued to carry these threats to locals. So I guess, in the reflection of how much the lore set did, I think we can recognize the Emperor stuff was kind of a bust. But, as far as Kay bringing something new to the front pile, how do you feel about, kind of her impact on the game from her release?
Yeah. Definitely K, and also to some degree Smag and kind of the more recent stuff, and just Smag's multi-reduction power becoming more online, and realizing that it triggers Cathedral, realizing Derm Dyna can make it unblockable, realizing that that next level of just random stuff that it can do because of the wording on it has just been super fun. But K and Smag also lend themselves, I think, better to 2 very different style of decks ultimately. That is only going to get better as the card pool gets deeper. So I'm really excited to see how much flexibility we get in set 4 that isn't locked into those archetypes that you can then recycle with K, or just have, the greedy cards that you want to play off of Smag because they have 2 pips of reduction. I think Forest Guardian Alrune is the best example for it. This is just an insane card and Smag helps you cast it for cheaper and you love to see it, sort of thing, where at the same time, K can grab them back later. But I think the next step for me is I like Smag probably more now, which is a really weird thing to say. But now that I played both these decks quite a bit, I think we just need better, what's the word for it? Better single targets for K to grab back. Aegis and Elephant are the big ones. And then if you think about the other colors, it's okay, I'm going to grab a Beldegor randomly because I'm probably putting the Beldegor loop in there to begin with. Blue just has Allegro if you're feeling super cheeky as a one of. I know some people are doing Castle Golem as well because it's something that you just pitch early and then is a single card that can run away with the game itself. So I think we do need to see more of that first before she really gets to shine again. But I would expect to see, again, as long as they're more open archetypes, Smag to kind of take the spotlight with set 4.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I think that when we covered this set, we kind of said the same thing months ago, is that Tokiwa and K were probably the cards that we're going to see play out of this, and then to some extent Godslaying, and that's exactly what we've seen. K decks, Tokiwa decks, and Godslaying here and there.
Yeah, so
nothing else in this set is that exciting. I think that Ancient Oath might see it play at some point.
I was about to call you out on it, John. Where's the Mermaid Victory Oath deck? Where is it?
Yeah, it's just that deck needs more nexuses that are proactive. I think
actually give you stuff to do.
Yeah, but I do think that Victory Oath will see play at some point, but it's just not its time. I mean, it says draw 2 cards, so something like that's always gonna.
It says draw your opponent 2 cards.
Sure, it sure does.
You know what? You give us the monkey, but one way as opposed to 2 way, and then I think you're really cooking at that point. But
yeah, so we'll see. But like we said, it was always K and Tokiwa, and here we are.
Yep.
I will say shout out to Manaka. He's appeared on a few sideboards.
Yeah, because that's a great pivot over to set 3. Right? Why is Manaka seeing play? That's because set 3 was a return to form in some ways, did introduce a new color, which I'd like to argue blue came out in a much better state than green came out in set 2. Like, I don't think it's even close. But very much return to form in terms of power level. Giving us Highlands, giving us the Gale strategy, giving us Genbu. I mean, like set 3, and just like you can see from the sales in the secondary market, which of course kind of has to do with the fact that some stores no longer support the game and aren't really opening products, so it's kind of harder to get. But at the end of the day, Mandala, new mill strategy. Genbu kind of made yellow, like put yellow on its back and said, "Come here," plus Flagellum, which obviously helps a ton, right? So I think, we've seen almost every single XR in some fashion see play out of set 3, and I think I've thoroughly enjoyed exploring set 3. I think especially when you include the blue stuff, like we talked about Mermaid and we joked about it a bit, but I tried so many decks with Mermaid, right? Like it's just like she's just opened up so many different strategies for me, and I think set 3 was very refreshing to come back to off of the heels of set 2.
Yeah, same. I mean, we had this discussion when they were doing previews. Like we all said that testing set 3 was a lot of fun. And I think that still remains true today, even though we have like a defined and established meta after, 6 grand opens, 5 grand opens, plus the Pro Tour, like you can still discover new decks. And, that's how you can tell that set 3 was great and did its job. Like I think, like you said, almost every X Rare has seen play somewhere. I think the purple waifu, I don't think that's been in any decks yet. But I mean, other than that card, I mean, I think every card has seen play somewhere. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I was shocked I had to look it up just to like still see it. And we are, again, for a reference point, we are quite a bit of ways from the set release itself, but like Forest Guardian El Rune is still $9, SPR Double Heart is 15, base Mandala is 12, base Jaeger is 9. Like a lot of the 9 to 12 or Genbu's $12 still. Like it is unheard of for Battle Spirits cards to hold this much value this late into the set. So I think it does bode well for set 4 from a price standpoint, but maybe also not so well at the same time, knowing that there's going to be significantly less stores opening products. So get ready for $20 X rares at the same time.
Yeah. So what, like Nocturne, the Queen, and maybe Scotty? I think those might be the 3 cards
Scotty saw one of play.
Okay.
Coliseum Golem saw play at the Pro Tour.
Yeah. We had it on stream at a grand open for Atlanta. So
oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay, what he says.
And shout out to Spencer. Unfortunately, started really hot, and then unfortunately the curse caught up to him, and he's storing all that energy for us.
It is a curse. Talking about Spencer, right? I love Spencer. Great guy, but it is actually pretty impressive that he actually went 2-5 and 3 consecutive Pro Tours. Like that takes skill to just end on that record every time. And he is a great player. That is not a slight on his skill. That's just like some awful luck. Yeah. But it's, that's crazy.
Yeah. Dude's good in Flesh and Blood, has his World's Invite for Shadowverse, if I'm not mistaken. He won an event there. Like he consistently does well in other card games. And it just breaks my heart to watch this man just stumble every time. Like, dude, get that W, please.
I'm curious if the Pro Tour invite or the World's Invite passed to him from the second Pro Tour. I don't know how many players were at the second Pro Tour and where he finished, but
God, I hope so.
He was in the Gulag, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So shouts out to that boy, because like he started so hot. I'm like, yes, this is the one. And then I asked him at the end, he's like 2-5. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. No.
Oh god. It was such a cool deck too. Like he took blue, he repped it. It sounded like it was doing really hot.
It was so hot on stream. I was so excited just watching him go with it, man. I'm like, all right, this is it. This is the day. And then like round 5, I checked. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
So very unfortunate there. And then Mermaid hasn't really seen play, but she is so interesting in the realm of building decks, right? Like you can build like a control shell, or like I really enjoyed throwing her in like blue-red lists. And then like what's fun about those lists is that you can turn her on for your offensive usages of your red nexuses, and then turn her on defensively for your blue ones, right? So it has that cool dual play. I love Mermaid. I think she's a card that scales really well with future design. It's just about just giving the game enough time to have enough nexuses that make her make sense.
Yeah, I'm, every set that comes out now, I'm just going to look at the nexuses first and be like, all right, how can I abuse Mermaid? Because this is like one of my favorite cards in the whole game.
Yeah. And then I guess the biggest story, because like the biggest story here is probably how this card flopped. Now, is that because blue isn't as good as we thought we were? Is it because the board wipe's not as good as we thought we were? I realized the more playtesting I did that there were a lot more ways to kind of play around this than you thought. Like if you're the Gale deck and you're playing against Cthulhu, it actually turns out that if you protect your Tokiwa, then you're fine, because then you can continue the Beldegor loops, and then you're like totally okay.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of circumstantial. I think the meta kind of just shaped in a way where the shark isn't as good as it can be. I think it's still a very good card, but I also think that blue as a whole is just a little lacking right now. And the fact that it's primary, way to cast it or even play it is the sack of blue nexus.
Yeah.
Like you just can't really.
What if it's at any nexus?
Do that. Then I think it'd be seeing a lot more play. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I think really the only splashable nexus you can afford to run is Seabed, right? And like a lot of people are really just siding it depending on the matchup.
Seabed and the arena's pretty good too, I think. Yeah. But yeah, those are like the main two. Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately Seabed has better usage on play than it does kind of chilling out in your drop. So.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what blue nexuses we get in set 4 and kind of revisit it.
Yeah. So then that's the last product we're getting until Worlds. And as far as the ebb and flow of the meta were, red always present. Purple was present for a while. Axebiter kind of came in, kind of warped the entire meta around it. Terra disappeared. Terra came back when they realized they could just play Joker.
Terra never disappeared over here.
Y'all were like, Sword Saurus was the sauce for one tournament. You guys got Matas in Top Cut, and that was it. Like, let's not.
Hey, now, I mean, nobody went to Tulsa, so that doesn't count. And then in Monroeville, it came back and forth. So it only disappeared because no one went to that event other than King Collins. So.
But yeah, so with the ban list pushing through, everyone thought red was the hot sauce, only for yellow Fable Beast to be able to take it, which then was kind of a precursor to the next set in which we expected Gale to be insane. And to be fair, I think everyone still stands that the Highlands high roll is actually toxic and not okay for the game. But nevertheless, while that being the big boogeyman, Genbu carrying yellow through for an insane kick to the season and kind of setting the stage there. Apollo-Dinos kind of turning around being like, yo, I'm really good, and kind of helping red kind of find its identity again. And now we're very much back into this incredibly open meta where, like, honestly, if you're a good enough pilot and you like your Swiss is kind of kind to you, you can really kind of grind through. Not only are we seeing colors of all creed besides blue, but it is what it is. We'll give it a little bit more time to develop its card pool, representing Top Cut, and that's including 4 color piles. It is not a 5-color deck, cause
maybe it's 5.
But we're seeing piles. We're seeing Mandela Mill lists. Once again, shout out to Anthony for kind of crafting that one, and just kind of a lot. So what does that say for Worlds? I'm not entirely sure, but what I will say is that it definitely feels like there's still a field there to maybe make some discoveries that can maybe crack Worlds wide open. So in that sense, we do have a full proper month that kind of help players finally settle in and see if they can really find anything to be able to kind of close out the first competitive season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's going to be anything that is crazy that comes out of that wasn't on purpose. The whole crazy comment, that wasn't on purpose. I don't know if you'll be like, you said crazy, but I I think what we'll see is just a lot of the same decks. It just maybe 4 or 5 cards different tech to beat what they feel like is going to be the most played decks, right? So maybe the red decks shift to like the Nova style decks to counter the yellow decks, and then maybe the white decks are like, well, if that's the case, maybe we'll do this, and that to counter the red decks. So it's just playing what deck you think will counter the most played deck, and kind of go from there. So I have no idea what that could be. I couldn't even tell you what our team is going to play or test because we're kind of taking a break until after New Year's. But it's just, we'll have to see where it all kind of falls.
Yeah. So I guess then, kind of taking an hour of reviewers' time, so don't want to push this for too long. But I guess, our last touch base is, as we look onwards to 2024, maybe aspirations, things to look forward to, or things that we're hoping for to kind of see going on. And we can probably do a quick round the table on that front before we kind of close out today's episode. So, John, anything that you would like to see or are excited to see, or kind of a wish list for 2024 in regards to Battle Spirits?
Not really. I mean, I would like to see them revamp organized play in a way that made more sense. I don't know what the answer is, so I can't even go into it, but I just want to see it done differently. But I mean, other than that, everything that we've seen so far, like set 4 sounds cool, like the collab set sounds cool, so that's stuff to look forward to. So I guess the main thing for me is just seeing like a newer and improved organized play.
Yeah. Could always go back to what their other games do in regards to just regionals that lead to Nats that eventually lead to Worlds. That at least means Australia will be able to go to an event.
Yeah,
that's not just like their one grand open every season, but I totally on with you there. How about you, Cosmore? Anything?
Nothing for me other than I want to see more of like Bandai unity across games and like how they approach their organized play. And I think a lot of that just comes down to them getting out of their own silos and talking with one another and get a roadmap that makes sense. But, same thing with John as well. It's just like, let us rebuild from a more region focus, because I think you'll drive just better attendance that way and have it be where you have the local into nationals and then have Worlds here because we're still the largest player base. Sorry, facts are facts. And it just makes the most sense to have here in the NA. But something that would at least encourage players to go out and spend more time within their own regions, I think would be a pretty big deal for the game. But, again, that's also with like Fusion World, because we don't know what Fusion World's organized play looks like. And now we know that One Piece has 2 championships instead of just 1 a year for whatever reason. So, like, again, for me, it's more of like bigger picture Bandai stuff than that's not just Battle Spirits, pointed. But obviously, Battle Spirits is going to be my main game still. So we'll see what kind of news we get at Worlds.
Yeah, I think for me, I just want to see 2024 be the year of communication. I think it's my biggest thing, right? Like I think there's a lot of takeaways we can have from just like, Star Wars has like their roadmap, right? Like every company in their mother is like throwing out like, hey, here's our 2024, here's our 2024. I do know that a lot of that is paused on Bandai side because they probably want to announce a lot of stuff at Worlds and kind of keep it there for like their exciting event. So like, fair enough, I can give them that buffer, but I think just having like, we see them do so many things in regards to how they manage their Japanese games. Like every single one of their card games have a digital YouTube channel that all have like a committed show that get like new videos every 3 to 4 days, whether it's discussion or like gameplay or whatever. Right. So I just, that kind of energy, especially now that they've unified like the card game brand for Bandai and kind of taken that into the new year, I think would be exciting, right? Like it'd be nice to like, obviously a lot of us know Kento, a lot of people in the community talk to Kento. It would be really cool if Kento or whoever the game producer is or whatever kind of sits down and be like, hey, month in, like this is what our game's all about. This is kind of what we're seeing. I love State of Game updates. And I think them taking a book from, a note from that and just kind of doing it in the Bandai way, I think would be a very warm welcome, especially since Battle Spirits doesn't have the benefit of being an IP game. It doesn't have the benefit of having communities built around the name and the stories and everything, because that just doesn't exist for it. So you kind of need to go more grassroots for it, create more memories for people, make the locals experience more interesting, and give people an attachment to the game that's not associated to the IP, because that's not why they're playing in the first place. So long-winded way to just say, hey, talk to us.
Yeah. No,
Absolutely.
I agree. I mean, every major company is like, here's our year in review. Here's what we're planning for next year and beyond. And it's just really great to see that kind of transparency. So I wish that Bandai did that more. It's not just, Battle Spirits. I think for all their games they can do better. Like I think the One Piece Championship stuff was like a leak from a magazine that's not even out or something, right? I mean, I don't know, but so like it's not even from them per se. It's just like they can do a better job of all that.
Well, it's from the official One Piece stores that they have globally that are opening up. But again, like, why was it at the store and not like something on your website? Like that was seems like it should have just been a post up there first. But here we are.
Yeah, I think Bushiroad has a lot of things they could do better. But dude, they do like a monthly show or like a seasonal conference, and that is like one of the most exciting streams I ever watch. And I don't even play any of their games, right? So it just goes to show.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we get it as well for Bandai. It's just Japan only. So that's
true.
Yeah, true. And like Fantasy Flight does like weekly, like things too, and it's cool to see. So whatever.
We'll see. So with that said, this will probably be the last episode of 2023. The next time we return will be 2024 as we lead up to Worlds. Gentlemen, any messages for our players, our listeners, to close out the year?
I got nothing. Thanks for listening. Keep listening. And I'll see you guys at events.
Yeah. Stay safe. Enjoy the holidays. Stay hydrated. Don't get into trouble. And looking forward to seeing everyone at Worlds that can make it. That's my big thing. It's like I cannot wait to see people at Worlds.
Yeah, 100%. I think get rested, enjoy the energy for all y'all playing, get tested because it'll be very exciting to see what World brings us. And I'm excited to see you there. So with that said, everybody, thank you so much for 2023. Thank you for joining the Church of Pentan Podcast. This has been a great launch here. I've enjoyed this podcast thoroughly. Had a lot of fun, and I've loved the community support around it. Every single time we get an episode out, and all I see are church emotes everywhere. It brings a little tingle of joy in my system. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for 2023. Be safe. Enjoy time with your families. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy the finale to your 2023. And we will see you guys in 2024. And until then, may the cores be our saviors.